My name is Sean O'Connor. I'm the CEO of Forge Robotics. So I'm fairly new to the industry. I took over as CEO of Forge Robotics about 14 months ago. My first week on the job was actually Mushroom Days in Holland, and one of our board members, Mel O'Rourke, was touring me around there for a couple of days as I was wide-eyed and trying to learn as much as I can about the mushroom industry, and met lots of folks here in the room at that conference as well. And I left with kind of two key lessons. The first one was that mushroom farmers are not the type of people that will tolerate any bullshit. I learned that pretty quickly. And quite frankly, that we were earning a reputation. Our company used to be called Tech Roof, it was called Tech at the time. That we were earning a bit of a reputation as being full of shit. So that was a bit of a challenge to learn about. And the second was that this is not an industry that you can come in as an outsider and expect to be successful in without a tremendous amount of collaboration from the people who really know this industry. And we don't know much about mushrooms at Forge Robotics. We're learning like crazy, but we're a robotics company that's entered the mushroom space over the last couple of years. And so took that learning back and realized I got to learn a little bit about mushrooms. So Chris and I was here, he runs Forge Robotics with me. We spent a day on farm at Highline picking mushrooms to just gain a bit more perspective on what the process is, and I left there with a tremendous amount of respect for how challenging and difficult it is to effectively be able to pick mushrooms in a way that optimizes yield and doesn't damage the mushrooms as well. And so we put that learning back to how we were going to build out the company over the last 14 months, and are in a spot where we've got robots that are picking mushrooms on farm in Canada today. I think we're separating, we're opening the bunches today, so if you want, you can track down Kieran here and he can call one of I think we've got someone on site today, hopefully. And so we do a live showing if you guys want, and we can walk around with the camera. But we're picking mushrooms on farm today. We build robots that are optimized for the Dutch shelves. We raised $17.5 million, actually effectively $21.5 million if you count a little bit of money came in at the start of this year. And I don't say that as a way to brag. In fact, one of very few companies in this room that loses money, and I don't think there's anything to be proud about that. But I think it's important that you guys know that we have lots of financial stability to be able to continue to iterate and improve our robots and expand from there. We're, I think, 51 employees now, but yeah, I had to send this in a little while ago, but 51 employees based in Canada, building these robots, deploying them, and making sure that we're constantly making them better. We took our first version 4 robots live on farm in January this year. Bit of a disaster for a couple of months, but turned into something that is picking 100% of the mushrooms in the room, other than about 15 minutes at the end of the last cycle. We'll send in some people to pick some of the fallen over mushrooms, but we are handling from the very start to the very end, opening the bunches and everything in between on Highline's farm in Canada. And you can move the robots from room to room, about 10 to 15 minutes to be able to take them off the shelf, move them into another room, not including whatever your cleaning procedures are. They can be washed down and bleached, all that good stuff. This is our V3 robot. So this was the robot that we put on farm just a little under 2 years ago, and it was going to change the industry, and we were going to figure it all out, and everything was great. And it didn't work out that way. It was inconsistent at the separations or opening the bunches or thinning process. Effectively, we were pretty good at the mechanical side, so we could pick them with our thinning suction cups. There needed to be some improvements there, but we were happy with the direction that it was going. The challenge is we created software rules on what to do when we were thinning, and I'll try and be quick about this, but effectively that was never going to work. So we were 3 years and $5 million into this at that point in time in terms of how do we pick mushrooms in the thinning process to optimize for the most yield. And every time we learned something else through the process, we'd add another rule. So you effectively have all these rules stacked on top of each other of when you see mushrooms in certain areas, how do you pick them? And each time we found a new thing that we did stupid, we would add another rule, and it just was never going to work, because it's not, picking mushrooms as we're learning is not as simple as creating rules, and really you need to have your proper artificial intelligence that solves that. So that's what we did, is we created an AI system. We have a really bright AI team working at our company. And just through pattern recognition, image annotation, we were able to build a system that could properly open the bunches or thin to optimize yield for Highline's farms. The cool part is you can walk around and see the robots. If you don't like what it does, You can say, oh, don't like what it did. You can have a timestamp. We record every mushroom that we pick and that we scan, and every mushroom that we don't pick. And you can say, you picked this one, you should have picked this one. You can continuously make it smarter. So you can have your smartest harvester's brain put into the robots and then put into every robot that's on your farm. What we're learning over the, as we started to bring on new partners is the thinning process in Western Canada is going to be very different than the thinning process in Pennsylvania. It's going to be different than the thinning process in parts of Europe or Australia or all these other countries that we're now looking at deploying in. And so effectively we need to allow the farms to create their own brains for the robots, which we've started to put into play. So you can annotate based on your harvesters, say this is how we want you to go through thinning. And then every time you don't like what the robot did, you just teach it. You say, oh, don't like that, and you give feedback to the robot to be able to improve it from there. We had too much downtime in our V3 process as well, so we just needed to, when it worked really well, we'd have it working for 24 or 48 hours at a time, and it was great, but there's 2 engineers outside of the room. And I don't think we're going to be around very long if I need to deploy robots at a whole bunch of farms around the world, and we send 4 robots and 8 engineers to every farm. That's not an effective way of replacing labor. And then we struggled with how we were packing and how we were moving our boxes as well. So there's a few things we need to go back to the drawing board on. We were proud of what we did. We picked about 7,000 kilograms of mushrooms. We were able to prove that you could pick mushrooms with a suction cup without damaging them. These mushrooms are sold at grocery stores across Western Canada and the US. But we needed to make improvements from there. So effectively now with the V4 robot, I always get the conversion rates wrong here, but the most we've done is about 80 pounds in an hour. That was right before the North American Mushroom Conference, and I mostly did that out of, I think for ego purposes, to be able to say we did it. We did a miserable job of yield because we were picking way too many mushrooms before they should have been picked, but we wanted to show that you could have these robots picking at 23, 24 picks a minute if you need to. Really, most of the time right now, they're picking at 16, 17 picks a minute. We handle 100% of the mushrooms in the room, are producing great yield results. That's all we're focused on in terms of what we need to do with our current customer. But as we go to some of the larger rooms, so the room we're in right now would be, what, 350 square meters, Chris? Sorry to put you on the spot.
20 meters long, 6.
Yeah, 20 meters long, six shelves high, and 2 stacks in the room. As we go into the larger ones, we'll probably see the robots, the pace at which they need to move will be a little bit faster from that, for picks per minute that are needed. So this is in January as we released them, and so thinning was looking really good. As you can see, we did a good job of calibrating the robots. We weren't picking the center aisle. That was a challenge for sure, but we felt that we're moving in the right direction over the course of January when we first deployed the robots. Wasn't perfect. This is a nice, wonderful box of mushrooms that we were, oh, there we go, yeah. This all looks great, and then there's still some calibration that was needed. This was not funny at the time, I can tell you that. It's a bit more funny now as we look back at it. We showed that we could do the box exchange. That was a piece that the robots were picking at a fairly good clip. They had some reliability issues in January that we needed to fix. You can see we were spilling tons of mushrooms on the floor at the time as well as we were dropping them through the process. But we had the box exchange process fixed. That was no longer a concern for us. We were able to reliably get to a point where we could move the mushrooms around. And then we were able to reduce the amount of time that they stopped picking to exchange boxes, and we'll get into punnets in a second here. But in March, things got a lot better. So you can see that center aisle issue is totally fixed. This is when we started picking 100% of the mushrooms in the room ourselves. We no longer needed to call Highline for help, which happened in January and February as we were making some mistakes along the way. We were able to go through the process of deploying our AI opening the bunches process, showing that we can effectively manage the beds in a way that can optimize yield, make sure they don't get away from us. And it's not great picture quality, but I can share these afterwards if anyone wants to see them. Again, I think we're doing separation opening the bunches today, so we can share some videos from farm there. Yeah, this is them working. So the robots were operating at a great clip. We're able to produce good results. The challenge here is that, as you see, as we were picking the mushrooms, if we picked them at a bad angle, and I think we'll have one of these coming up soon. Yeah, this one here will allow us to be decapped the mushroom. But as we were picking the mushrooms, our goal was that we didn't want to have a second touch on the mushroom before it went into the package or in the future into the punnets. And unfortunately, there's just too many times you can pick a mushroom up and it's on an angle, and so as you bring it over to the trimming station, we weren't able to trim the stems in a way that could either make sure there was no peat left behind, or didn't cut into the cap itself. So we were happy with the results. We had, we're producing really good mushrooms coming off the bed. This is in early March. But we realized we need to add a second step to our trimming process, is provide a bit more consistency in terms of how we were able to trim the mushroom to optimize the stem length, allow the farm to effectively, that was the one where we cut into the cap there because it was picked off center. So we realized we needed to add a trimming station into the process here. And so that's where, this is just more picking, but yeah, again, mushrooms we're able to pick. Actually, I think it's probably interesting to talk about how we were able to solve this issue through our patented process of picking the mushrooms with the suction cup. So when we first started at this, we were using a suction cup and produced really good results. We were able to go down, pick the mushrooms, and then you put them in the cold room, or in our case, this little fridge we have in Salmon Arm, our manufacturing facility. And they look fine, and then after 4 or 5 hours, you get these little hickeys or bruises that would start showing up on them. So that was super disappointing. And then we moved over to fingers and tried to build a finger-based approach to how we were picking mushrooms. And effectively, we realized that we were just never going to be able to figure out how to pick mushrooms with robotic fingers without damaging less so the mushroom that you're picking, but more so the mushrooms that are clustered into it. It was very difficult to pick in the tight clusters with fingers. So we built this approach where we've got the suction cup that's able to come down on top of the mushroom, maximize the surface area that's touching the mushroom as you start the suction process. We have a variety of different things that we'll do based on the surrounding mushrooms with the one we're touching, whether you're tilting or twisting or pulling or all the different pieces that come with it. What we want to do is maximize the surface area where you're applying pressure so you can effectively move the mushroom without causing this bruising effect. And again, we're taking lots of mushrooms in Canada today with mushrooms that go on to be sold across Western Canada. So very proud of what we've created there. But this is the new trimming station. Actually, it's changed even since this one, where it's improved a little bit more. But we had to figure out a way to trim the mushrooms in a manner that wasn't going to be cutting into the cap or adding or leaving any peat remaining on the stem. Oh yeah, so we've got a variety of different suction cups. We have our thinning cup, our small cup, our medium cup, and our large cup. So 4 different cups that we're using. We automatically clean them on a both regular cadence, or if we notice we leave any blemishes on the mushroom, we automatically go through a cleaning cycle, or we retire the cup entirely. But to change a cup, if you're giving different commands for what size mushrooms you want picked, or if it just decides it needs to change the cup for a variety of different reasons, it takes about 2.5 seconds. So the process of, as we're picking, the pick speed of how quickly you pick a mushroom is important. The really important part for us was making sure that we have as little time as possible not picking mushrooms. So speeding up the scan time, speeding up our ability to change cups, speeding up our ability to exchange boxes and punnets. If you were to work with us, this is kind of what we would expect you to see. And we actually outperformed this with Highline, but the first cycle is going to be a learning process for both groups involved. So we think that in the room that our robots are in, you should plan to have at least half your typical harvesting labor in that room, being able to kind of help our robots as they calibrate. By the second cycle, we expect you need about 20% of your typical labor. So to have some people coming in, helping out, whether it's through opening the bunches or separation if our algorithms aren't tweaked yet, because at the end of each cycle to make sure that we're getting mushrooms out of there quickly, but we'll need a bit of support there. And then really by cycle 4 to cycle 5 is when we want to start proving like raised harvesting will get you above 100% of your typical yield when compared to the other rooms on your farm. And at that point, no human harvesting required whatsoever. So the robot still at that stage will only be picking into boxes for kind of cycles 4 and 5. And again, we just want to set our robots up to be successful, minimize the variability or stress that we put on them. And then cycle 5 onwards is when we expect that we can be picking into punnets and fills. This is our kind of standard deployment schedule for any farms we're working with. Before that though, prior to cycle 1, we want to work with your smartest harvesters to help you guys build your own thinning and opening the bunches process for your farm, because again, your farm's going to be different than other farms that we're working with. Yeah, so that's us. We're looking for innovative farms that want to partner with us. Super happy with the early results that we have today. Have lots of deployments that are starting to be scheduled for the back half of this year and early next year. And really kind of up until the end of next year, we think we can produce 140 robots. So it sounds like a lot, but they go pretty quickly. And so just trying to make sure that we're not putting those across 20 different farms. We've got a fairly large team, but not large enough to be handling more than 5 to 7 farms, I'd say, over the next, between now and the end of 2025. So go pester Kieran, he'll be walking around if you want to see some of our live robots. I think we got someone there today, but we can show them, we can show the robots a quick glimpse of how they're performing today as they go through opening the lunches. It's early in the morning in Canada, but they work 24/7 as it is. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate you guys having us.